With the NHL only having a couple weeks left, around 10 games left until the NHL playoffs finally begin, I figured it's about good time for me to talk about the contenders and who most likely is going to make a run and some of the best teams that are in the league. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. How I have this set up, I'm going to be talking about 4 teams from the West, 4 teams from the East, two primary people that I think are going to make the finals, like the 2 favorites, and then 2 people that could just make a run. It wouldn't be super surprising, but at the same time, they're not expected to. And then at the very, very end, I just have like all the extras that somehow could make a run, but aren't super likely to. And so that's about it. I'm not going to really ramble on. You're going to understand the point of the video as I'm talking through it. So my name is John. This is the Sports Advocate. We're just going to get right into this. If you like this, go ahead and subscribe. I have tons of content like this and all sorts of sports. Give me a like, a dislike. It gives me a lot of information. And give me some criticisms down below. Just help me improve, because this is something I really enjoy and I want to do better for you guys, the viewers, and for myself, just so I feel a little better about my decision to start this. And I'm very happy with what I've done so far. So first things first, why not start with the favorite? They've been the favorite pretty much year long. The Colorado Avalanche, they're number 1 in the league. Most points in the league. I think they have 106. Most wins in the league. Least losses in the league. The team's been playing great, top to bottom. Goalie, offense, defense, and that's exactly why they've been playing so good. At the goalie, they have Darcy Kemper, who's 3rd in shutouts with 5. He's 4th in save percentage. So, I mean, very, very good at that. He's not top 5 in goals against average, which pretty much just tells you that when he's playing, he has more shots against him. Because if he has a top 5 save percentage, but he's not top 5 goals against average, he's just having more shots towards him than the rest of the top 5 goalies. They are also number 2 in offense and number 6 in defense. So, I mean, you literally can't complain about this team at all. There's a reason why they're the favorites. They've been playing so well. I don't even know how they've set up such a good team with the salary cap. I mean, we've seen Tampa, who played so well, and now they're kind of struggling now that they've had to deal with all the salary cap. But Colorado Avalanche has found a way to do it, and they're clearly the favorites, and there's really no reason for me to ramble on about them because, I mean, it's very obvious why they're here, and it's very obvious why they're going to continue to do well. Once the playoffs do start, they are currently my favorites, and that's not a surprise to anyone, if we're being honest. Next up in the West, we have the Flames, who are number 1 in the Pacific, number 2 in the West, but they are number 6 in the entire league. They're a really streaky team, if we're being honest. They started the year very well, and then they kind of lowered, and then they got really hot again there in this past month or so, and then now I think they were on a 6-game losing streak, and now they're kind of back on track. But the team's very streaky, which is good news if you end up getting on a streak during the playoffs. Both I'm gonna butcher his name. Gaudreau and Lindholm are number 1 and number 2 in plus minus, which pretty much just tells you that their offense and defense are very good when they're on the ice. If you don't know, that's the goal is for when you're on the ice minus the goals against when you're on the ice. And having a great plus minus, especially for 2 players, obviously they're going to be the same line if both of them are doing very good. But that's very good news for you. You're going to be playing very well at that point. Next up, their goalie, which I expect to be in conversation for goalie of the year once the awards come around, is Jacob Markstrom. He's 3rd in goals against average, which is already very good. He is 5th in save percentage. Again, very, very good. And most importantly, I would argue most importantly, but not really, he's number 1 in shutouts. He has 9, which is almost double Darcy Kemper, who's 3rd. So that's crazy. And obviously, Jacob Markstrom, he's not going to play every single game during the regular season. So having 9 throughout whatever games he has played is very impressive. And one key thing is when you have a goalie that's playing so well and has multiple shutouts and all that stuff, when the playoffs come around, you're going to ride whoever your best goalie is, and they're probably playing every single game unless they have 2 bad games back-to-back. So you're probably going to see Markstrom in net every game, and this team is way better when they have him in net. And when you have a goalie that has 9 shutouts on the year in net during the playoffs, that brings a lot of confidence to the team, and he's going to be doing very well. I don't see any reason why he would slow down. And again, when you have a very good goalie who is arguably your best penalty killer, you're going to have a great penalty kill, and that's what they have. They have number 5 in penalty kill, and they're number 2 in defense, which again is a big part of the goalie, but you can't take away their defensemen. And honestly, their wingers and their center are all very good in the defensive end of the zone. But most importantly, when your goalie's doing good, you're going to have a good penalty kill and a good defense, and that's exactly what we're seeing. And I don't really expect it to slow down. I think they might be a sleeper. I mean, I guess if they're 2 in the Western, not a sleeper in the Western, but I could see them somehow making a run for the finals itself and possibly winning it as long as Markstrom does very well. So now we're going to move to the East, so we're going to talk about the 2 favorites in that, and then we'll shift back to the West of the 2 like extras that could make a run. First things first, the Florida Panthers, number 2 in the league. The weird thing, at least for me, is statistically speaking, like when you're looking at all the stats and like top 5s, top 10s, they're honestly not all over this like the sheet. Like the Avalanche are all over the sheet everywhere, all that stuff. But the Panthers aren't. They're like really good in one key area, the offense. They're number 1 offense in the entire league, which is going to be a huge help for you. Take a lot of pressure off your goalie because even if he lets a couple in, your offense is going to be able to go get some. They're number 2 in the league. Huberdeau is 2nd in points and 1st in assists. So the offensive capabilities of this Panthers team is the big reason why they're doing so well, and a big reason why they're going to continue to do well in the playoffs. The only thing is you're going to be playing against top-tier goalies every single game, every single series. But when you're number 1 offense in the league, I'm sure you're not too worried about that because you've already played these top-tier goalies throughout the year, and you've still found a way to score on them, so I don't see any reason why they would slow down. Sorry if it feels like we're running through each team specifically. I wanted to do individual videos, but oh boy, would it be so much. I mean, that's 8 videos at least, which is just a ton. So I'm doing it this way. We're kind of going through teams fast because I have 8 teams that I kind of want to talk about. And if I took anywhere near the amount of time that I'd want to take, this video would be 40 minutes long, and it'd be more like an hour long if we're being honest with ourselves, and I don't think anyone wants to watch that, nor do I want to sit here and talk that long without like taking a break. So next up, we have the Hurricanes. They're number 3 in the entire league. They're number 2 in the Eastern Conference. This team's doing very good. Frederik Andersen is number 1 in goals against average and 3rd in save percentage. Again, a very good goalie, and that's a consistent thing you're going to see constantly in the playoffs. Whoever's doing well has a good goalie. But Hurricanes, again, a prime example of that, a prime reason why they are favorites, and they've been doing so well in the regular season. And something that's kind of weird thinking about all this, and there's obviously outliers, there's plenty of proof that my statement I'm about to say is very wrong, but I feel like in the NBA, upset series is just a lot more likely than in the NHL. Just whenever you have a top goalie, I just feel like an upset is not as likely as it is in some other sports, and that's kind of why these top teams are top teams and why I don't really expect them to fall much. So next up, number 1 in penalty kill. Again, big part of the goalie. And they're also number 1 in shots against per game. So they have the least shots against per game. When you have a very good goalie at save percentage and he's not seeing a lot of shots, it's going to lead to not many goals. And that's why he's number 1 in goals against average, because he's not seeing as many shots and he has such a high save percentage. And even when they have their backup goalies, which, again, I don't expect to see in the playoffs, you're limiting the shots on them. They're going to have lower goals on them. So that's just very good news overall on them. And they have a pretty good offense. Obviously, they're not top 5 or anything, but they still have a pretty good offense, and that's going to be a big help when you have such a great defense. Now we're going to shift back over to the West, the Western Conference. My teams that could make a run but aren't super favorites. And I think you could kind of expect who I'm going to say. First things first, the Minnesota Wild. They did very good last year. They were expected to do good this year. I think they're a little bit below expectations. But with what the team has, I still think that they're going to find a way to make some sort of run as long as they don't end up going against the Avalanche or the Flames super early on. Like if one of them gets knocked off, then the Wild could go ahead and make a pretty deep run, if I'm being honest. First things first, goalies. They have Talbot and Fleury, which is one of the few teams in the league that I think could rotate goalies and be perfectly fine. They're right about the same averages. They're both very good goalies. This year, not so much for Fleury, but he was on Chicago, which that team's not very good at all. They also have Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov, which he's always doing just crazy stuff, huge offensive threat. And speaking of offensive threat, they're number 5 in the league for offense. So when you have two pretty good goalies, I won't say top tier just because this year neither of them are playing top tier, for being honest, and a very good offense, that's a prime reason to go ahead and that they could possibly make a run, especially if they have some favorable matchups through it. And honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if they could go out and beat a team like the Flames or something like that. So this team could easily go make a run. I wouldn't be too surprised. Lastly, for the Western Conference, of my people that I think could make a run is a team that's been making a run currently to possibly snatch the one in the Pacific Division. They're now at number 2, and they just took it from the Kings, the Oilers. And here's the weird thing about the Oilers and why I don't have them any higher, even though they've been playing well, is because their goalies, they don't really have good goalies, great goalies, and that's going to be a big, big problem for them. But they have Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, and that's why they're doing so well, because their offense and their capabilities is just off the charts. Connor McDavid, obviously, so good, Sidney Crosby level, honestly, and then Draisaitl's playing so good because he's with them. I think they're both centers, though, but oftentimes they're on the ice together. I think that team could somehow make a run if they get a little lucky on their goalie play. Back to the East real quick. My 2 that could make a run, and I would not be surprised at all because the East is so stacked this year. I mean, it literally goes, the West is number 1, and then it goes 2, 3, 4, 5 are all East, and then 6 is the Flames. So pretty much any of these Eastern teams that I'm naming could easily make it to the finals, which is just crazy to think about. And who knows, maybe we see one of these teams go ahead and face each other like round 1, round 2, which would be insane to witness some of these teams play super early. It'd be crazy what some of these, like, how the rest of the playoffs could play out if these teams played super early. But next up in the East, the Maple Leafs. I know everyone's joke is they get knocked out first round, and they probably could still this year, but we have to bring them up nonetheless. They're 4th in the league. Obviously, Austin Matthews has been playing crazy. He's number 1 in goals. I think he just set the record for them, their franchise in goals, and they're so good. They're also number 1 in power play percentage. Sorry, I had something in my throat. So every time that there's a power play, they're number 1 in the league for actually scoring on it. Even when they're playing against these teams that are very good at the penalty kill or have very good goalies, they're still finding a way to get the goals, which in the playoffs is very, very good news for you, no matter what team you are, but especially when you have someone as capable as Austin Matthews. They're also number 1 in face-off percentage wins, so you're going to end up with more shots when you're winning face-offs and less shots if you're winning face-offs in the defensive zone. The team's very good at getting the puck, handling the puck very well, and keeping it, which is just super, super great news. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself nonstop, but it's hard to. All these teams are going to be doing very good and very similar things because that's how you get to a place. The ability to win in the NHL is very contingent on just a few things, goalies and penalties, because you have to go get a goal when the other team messes up, especially against these top teams. So I'm going to be repeating myself often. I'm sure you heard it a million times. But all of these teams that are doing so well because they're doing the right things, which are going to be the same things for every single team. Maple Leafs are also number 4 in defense, so even with that great offense, they have a very good defense, was going to help them on their penalty kill. In normal, when you have power play, you're going to be able to score, and then you're going to be able to kill their penalties. So the Maple Leafs at 4th in the league are very good, but you got to wonder if that first-round exit curse is going to play out again this year, and if you get an unfavorable matchup, which they very well could, they might get knocked out again first round. Lastly, for competitors in the Eastern Conference, we have the Rangers, 5th in the league. Honestly, kind of a surprise to me. I feel like they weren't a surprise to most people. I feel like they had pretty high odds, but I did not expect them to be doing this well throughout the whole season. Chris Kreider, I'm so bad with names in the NHL, and it's very hard in the NHL because you have so many countries. I need to work on it, or at least Google how to say their name before. He's 3rd in goals. Again, a big help for your team. Igor, their goalie, is 1st in goals against average and 1st in save percentage. He's definitely in competition for the best goalie in the league. When you're 1st in goals against average and save percentage, they're kind of going to favor each other. When you're doing so good at saving pucks, there's not going to be as many going in, so your number is going to be lower. But that is huge news. And again, repeating myself, goalie is pretty much the most important thing in the NHL playoffs. If your goalie's doing well and they can shut down the other team's offense, then you're going to be able to make a run. So that's a big reason why the Rangers could possibly make a run, even against these top-tier teams like the Panthers. Next up, they're number 1 in power play. Why did I stutter at that? They're number 1 in power play. Oh, I stuttered because the Maple Leafs are. Oh, I definitely messed that up somewhere. Let me Google, or let me search this. Pull up my phone real quick. Boom, boom. Sorry about that, guys. I think I mixed up the Maple Leafs and the Rangers because the last two things are exactly identical, which obviously is not possible. So click on stats. We're going to have to go to teams, power play percentage. So the Maple Leafs are number 1. I definitely messed up something. We're just going to... So the Rangers, goalie, very good. They do still have a very good offense and defense. So they're going to be able to make a run. I'm sorry that I somehow mixed up the Maple Leafs and Rangers, and I wrote some of the Maple Leafs stuff twice down here for the Rangers. Don't know what I was thinking. But these are my 8 teams that are most likely my four that are very, very top picks, likely to make the Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals. Avalanche and Flames for the West, Panthers and Hurricanes for the East. Pretty simple. The top 2 teams, I don't really see much variation in that. And then my 2 that could possibly make a run is Wild and Oilers for the West, and the Maple Leafs and Rangers for the East. The East is so tight that I wouldn't be surprised if a single one of these teams ended up making it to the Stanley Cup Finals. The West, I'd have to assume that it's the Avalanche because they've been playing so good. And lastly, what I want to cover is just the remaining teams. Maybe some of the teams that could somehow make a run, but not super, super likely, and just kind of the remaining teams. So obviously with 10 games left, the wild card's pretty open, especially in the West. East not so much, but the West is. We're not going to really cover any wild card teams like Vegas, Dallas, Predators, anything like that. But the Lightning obviously just won it last year. Their team's still very good. Goalie is Vasilevsky's always so good. So Tampa Bay could clearly make a run. I can't doubt them, but I don't think they're at the same level as the rest of these guys. Again, the Boston Bruins and the Pittsburgh Penguins, I have both of them. The East is so stacked, like I said. Pretty much any team could make it, and I wouldn't be too shocked. But I had to bring them up, the Bruins and the Penguins. They each have very good teams. Like overall, neither of them really have great goalies. The Bruins have a pretty good duo, but the Penguins don't have a great goalie, but they have Sidney Crosby. I think either of these teams, I think if anything, the Bruins are a little bit more likely than the Penguins. But again, with how stacked the Eastern Conference is, I can't list every single team there and have like a bunch of reasons. And lastly, for the West, I have the Blues, which also, again, a little bit of a surprise. They're doing very well. I think they have like 95 points. But I just don't see them competing very well, at least against the Avalanche. I think they have more points than the Wild and the Oilers, but I think that the Wild, with overall their team, their offense, and with their goalies, I think have a little bit better chance than the Blues. And the Oilers, I've just been really hot lately, so I had to put them on there because they're heating up right before playoffs, and that's always great news. So, I guess that's pretty much the video. There's a lot of information here, but overall, I'm going to say, I'm going to do my picks right now for the conference finals and the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm going to say it's going to be, I think the Rangers. Gosh, it's tough. I think it's Rangers Hurricanes for the East, which is tough to say because the Panthers are such a good team and their offense is very good. But I think defense is going to be the big reason that a team wins here is going to be their defense. I mean, Panthers have a number 1 offense, but when the Rangers have a number 4 defense and Igor, that's going to be tough. When the Hurricanes have a number 1 defense, that's going to be tough. So I think it's Hurricanes Rangers for the East. I think the Hurricanes come out on top. They were doing very good at the beginning of the year, and then the Panthers kind of took over a little bit more. And for the West, you have to say the Avalanche. I think Avalanche goes to the Stanley Cup Finals. I think the Avalanche wins the Stanley Cup Finals over the Hurricanes. Who does Avalanche go against in the Western Conference? It's tough not to say the Flames, but I could also say the Wild. I'm not really too sure. I'll say the Wild just because I'm a Fleury fan and I like Kirill. So I'll go Wild, Avalanche. Avalanche wins. Hurricanes, Rangers. Hurricanes win. Avalanche versus Hurricanes. Colorado Avalanche wins. Avalanche wins their Stanley Cup Finals. So there's my picks. There's my who I think is going to be able to make a run in the playoffs, all that stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in. I feel like it was a lot of ramble, repeating myself nonstop, which I don't really like doing in a video. But again, there's only a couple stats and things that really matter in the Stanley Cup Finals, which are going to get you far enough. And it's the exact same things every single year. So thank you for tuning in. I'm not going to really rant too much. I'm going to have a video coming up on Vegas, who their goalie should be throughout the remainder of the season if they want to make a playoff push, and who it should be in the playoffs. I have a video, if you like basketball, on who I think the MVP should be. I have plenty of videos in the past. I'm probably going to have my favorite videos I've ever made on this channel are my Vegas Golden Knights series on their very first year and all that stuff. So I think I'm going to have that playlist pop up beside me just because I think it deserves more viewership, and it really hasn't gotten as much love as I put into making it. I mean, I had like 20 pages of notes just written down just for those videos, and I really wish I'd get more love. So I'm going to have that pop up. Go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to have that pop up. I'd really appreciate it, and I have plenty more content. Sorry if this video... Just click, give me a chance. Go ahead and click on another one of my videos, whether it's a playlist or if you like NFL or NBA, go ahead and check out one of those. But I have plenty of content, and I feel like this video doesn't show the full amount of what I'm capable of because how constantly you're repeating yourself. But I have some very good content. I have very good content coming out more. So subscribe, ring the bell, give me a like, a dislike, and comment down below who you think will be in the Stanley Cup Finals, and lastly, who you think will win. So we're going to go ahead and cut out. If you know this outro, then go ahead and say it with me or not. I don't really care. I hope I taught you something today. I hope I put a smile on your face, made you laugh. That's something that I really enjoy, knowing that somehow I can affect someone else's life. And lastly, you guys all be safe out there.